Well, happy weekend, folks. It's time for the weekend video. Get ready. Well, today I got to thinking about something because Marcel Roos, the gospel revolutionary in the Netherlands, he posted a while back on our Friends of Mike Williams and the Gospel Revolution group on Facebook um, a verse of the day. He doesn't regularly do that, but I guess the verse just hit him right that day, so he posted it. And that verse made me think of a passage in Matthew chapter 20. So I'm going to tell you about the passage in Matthew chapter 20 first, and then get to the verse that Marcel posted, because there's a reason for this. It's just a good comparison of how Christianity has interpreted passages and verses, basically because their fundamental paradigm is off, and because the paradigm is off, they reach different conclusions. And the paradigm I'm talking about is the gospel itself. So most of you probably remember the mother of the sons of Zebedee went to Jesus, and she asked Jesus, and they were obviously there with her, and they asked Jesus that when his kingdom comes, or when he enters into his kingdom, however, that her sons, one would sit on his right hand and the other on the left. And so in verse 22, Jesus answered, and he says, "Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They say unto him, "We are able." And they were very ignorant, because they didn't know what cup Jesus was talking about, nor did they know the baptism that Jesus was talking about. Most likely, now in Christianity, this is interpreted most often that the cup is referring to the cup at the Last Supper, and the baptism is the water baptism that Jesus had with John. But even the sons of Zebedee, I'm sure, thought it was going to be something special after Jesus usurped the throne of Israel and threw out the Romans in the new kingdom, a physical kingdom on earth, because they truly believed that Jesus would physically rule from a throne on earth. And that was not the case. So here's the verse that Marcel posted on Facebook. It comes from Romans. The Apostle Paul is saying in Romans chapter 6, verse 4, "We were therefore buried with him through baptism into death, in order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we too may live a new life." Now, the Christian take on that is when you accept Jesus, then all of a sudden you are retroactively buried with him and raised from the dead, sort of. And they when you accept Jesus, receive Jesus, and get baptized, that baptism is symbolic of you going through death with Jesus and being raised from the dead in the future. This is not what Paul is saying, though. So in both this verse and in the verse in Matthew, they didn't know what the cup was, and they didn't know what the baptism was that Jesus was referring to. Jesus, when he referred to the cup, he was referring to the cup of judgment that came from God at the cross. And Jesus did literally take all of humanity into him spiritually through that experience of the judgment, the death, the burial, and the resurrection. which the baptism that Jesus was referring to when he was talking to the sons of Zebedee, that was his baptism into death. And we were taken into that baptism as well. So yes, Paul refers to the fact that we died with Christ when he died. If the Christian interpretation were true, that once you believe in Jesus and are baptized, then Paul's lying here, because Paul is not saying that he was buried with Christ. He's saying we were buried with him. He's not saying because I believed and got baptized, I was buried with him, and we were all buried with him when we individually were baptized at different times. He's saying no, we were all buried with him through baptism into his death, in order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we too may live a new life. Paul says that refers to this multiple times in Romans and in other letters, where we died with him and we rose with him, all of humanity collectively, one with him. We went through this in a spiritual context. And so, yes, this is a good verse of the day, of course. But what this verse is literally saying is that all of humanity died and rose with Jesus Christ. We were baptized into his death with him 2,000 years ago, from a spiritual context. Nobody needs to get baptized. Nobody needs to drink a cup of wine. It was all done at the cross. It's revolutionary. I know. Have a revolutionary week.